Om Lokaha Samastaha Suki no Bhavantu. May all beings be happy and peaceful. Phoenix here. Welcome to my channel. It is Sunday, March 19th, 2023. I'm making this video in lieu of my Monday live stream because of the weekend price action. Once again, we're pumping on a Sunday nonetheless. And it's exciting, right? And the question is, of course, are we back into bull market territory? Well, I would argue yes, technically speaking, but there are some caveats. Before I dive into the charts, I just wanted to share with you this Heaven on Earth yoga retreat, which I am very much a part of. It's happening this summer in Nosara, Costa Rica. If you're interested in joining me, getting a nice reprieve from the madness of city life, perhaps, you can find the link down in the description below. There is a discount code. It's Phoenix, and you can save some money on that as well. So let's look at Bitcoin. This is the largest weekly candle that I could find for Bitcoin. It's at about 33% at present. Of course, the weekly candle hasn't closed yet. We still have 3.5 hours into the close. But in the bull run, the previous bull run, the largest candle that I could find was about 25%. Now, I'm not measuring the wicks, just the bodies of the candles. But this one was pretty close to a Maribozu here. Now, back in 2018, there was a 34% candle for Bitcoin, but that was near the end. That was one of the final months prior to the bear market. So that was near the end of markup. And here we are arguably at the beginning of markup from a technical standpoint. And the reason that I would say that, the reason that I'm not exactly changing my tune here, but I would say that the reason this is the case, some would argue, well, look at what happened on the weekly. We broke above here, this diagonal. Diagonals don't have too much weight here. I'm urging caution. I'm cautiously optimistic for some reasons I'll get into in a moment here. But first, let's look and see what's happening here with this 200 weekly moving average. We have a decisive break above. That is bullish. Now, will it come back down to retest? There is some confluence here with this level because it's not only the 200 weekly moving average, but it's also the top of this previous, what we would have called the accumulation range, which it was sort of a short but sweet accumulation range. The question, is this a deviation above the range like we saw here? It's still a possibility. I don't want to rule that out. Definitely not. But the strength of this candle is pointing towards more upside in the coming weeks. It depends on a number of factors, one of them being FOMC happening on Wednesday. If it's a 50-point hike, I can't foresee this pushing much higher here. Although you never know, because Bitcoin has actually pushed up 68% since the beginning of the year. Okay, so this was January, and we have pushed up actually 69%, almost 70%. S&P 500, I think it's maybe 3%, 2 or 3%. Gold, only about 9%. And so this has outperformed every other asset class. It's really, and even Ethereum, if we compare this to Ethereum, it's actually much higher than Ethereum was, than Ethereum has run. So Ethereum is only 55%, which is still phenomenal performance compared to every other asset class. This is actually what we want to see with Bitcoin. This is what Bitcoin was designed for. It's just that I'm just wary because of the potential for black swan events, which we saw what happened here. Even though we broke above with conviction, this was the breakout of accumulation, and then it sort of came back and retested and then held above. Looked like full send from here, but actually consolidated and eventually came back down and all the way back lower than the breakout because of this one single event. And we've remained range bound for, it was a long time. We remained range bound for quite a while after that. Okay, so all this was a range. And so what I would argue here is that I don't want to say bull or bear. I want to stay as neutral as possible and say that volatility is going to be higher than it's ever been, or at least very, very high. I don't want to say higher than it's ever been, but at least very high. And we will be predominantly range bound in 2023. That would be my prediction. I don't want to predict targets to the upside because of the geopolitical climate, because of the inflation fiasco that's going on, because of what's happening with banks, because there's just so many reasons why we could see another black swan event. We know full well that the market's going to do what it wants, regardless of what we think, and we have to trade accordingly and be on high alert and give credit where credit is due. And right now, credit is due to the bulls, because the bulls have really pushed this up much more than the bears have this year, okay? Much more than the bears have managed to push it back down again. So as far as looking at levels and where to trade, where to enter, where to exit, for me, my thinking right now, I'm just like, alts, forget it. I'll take a small alt trade every now and then. I don't care. I want to be clear on Bitcoin, Ethereum. If I see Bitcoin, Ethereum really start to top out and there's a strong momentum move to the downside, which I can identify through what? Big candles on the 15-minute, on the hourly, after a period of consolidation. This is what we've seen. This has been the trend. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, go back and watch my video from Friday because I lay it out very clearly. We're looking for the strong breaks. We're looking for the whale movements, and the evidence of that can be seen in the candles. You don't need to look at footprints. You don't need to look at the order flow. None of that. Focus on the size of the candles and to see where the momentum lies. So we're looking for targets for Bitcoin first, and then we'll look at Ethereum. I'm not going to focus on the alts today. I don't care about the alts right now. Now, this was the accumulation range. We have the break above. Okay, this was the mid level. We hit that target here, 28,600. Second target was up here. This is 28,550. It's an obvious level to short. It's almost too obvious. So I'm not going to short from there, because Bitcoin could realistically push up to the mid of this range, around 30K. It could realistically push up to 31,300. It could shoot up even higher and then deviate back inside. But this is the next range that we're looking towards. So we're just playing the ranges here. Initially we have this range here, from here to here, okay? Playing that. That's where we are right now, but we're near the top of it, okay? And then if it breaks into this range here, then we have between these levels to work with, okay? That's the best that we can do right now. Of course, if Bitcoin does just shoot up and hold up here like it did at 25,200, then we're talking much higher targets, all the way up $37,000, $38,000, because there's a lot to fill on the way back up again. A lot of these thin liquidity gaps here, okay? So, but for now, just zooming in and looking and seeing, is this a place where I'd be willing to long or short? Neither, because not with Bitcoin. With Ethereum, it's possible. We'll go through that in a moment, but it's been such a strong move. This is a trending market, so I like to use these EMAs on the 4H and C. You can see it's held as support. When you get a pin bar, especially that comes down to one of these EMAs, ideally in between like it did here, that was a long signal for Bitcoin. And even though it wasn't as clear because we had seen such a strong move already, but again, it's a trending market. We haven't seen a lower high, we haven't seen a lower low. None of that has happened yet. So it's not really time to short. At best, for bears, at least, there'll be some sort of a consolidation here. And so again, every time it comes down to these EMAs, it's finding support, blasting off again. So if it does come back down to 26,850, then in that case, that could be a potential long setup. But then from there, I'd be honing in on the lower time frames and looking to find some momentum like we saw here. Okay, so it comes down, comes back down here, consolidates, forms a pattern, breaks with some conviction. There's a long trigger for Bitcoin. That's around 27K, okay? Or comes back up here, pushes up here, 28,550, breaks down. That's a short trigger, okay? But I'd just be looking to play this range here. So your mid would be your target, and that would be somewhere around 27,750. Target for short, and also the target for the long. And then you'd have the target, the lower and upper targets, depending on whether you're going long or short there. And so if it does break back up let's just say it does make a quick move back up here. Again, I'm not really interested in longing this type of a move unless it comes up and settles down, consolidates, and then breaks above with conviction. And then you're looking to target the mid of this range, right? Which would happen to be, let's identify that because this will probably be relevant soon. That would be in here. Notice this is the only reason I use the fibs anymore, is for this. It's just to identify the mid and the quarter levels in some cases. The mid here is 29,940. Okay, so that would actually be a sensible place to take profits for Bitcoin. If it cleared here and you're taking your long from here, there's another take profit level, and then you've got 31,300. Okay, and then I'd be just sort of waiting to see what happens next. That would be sort of the extreme long scenario, which again, we just saw the biggest weekly candle that we've ever seen for Bitcoin. I couldn't find one that big going back on the index chart. Maybe there are some exceptions on other charts, but pretty strong move. So what are the chances that we actually, oh, I didn't want to delete that. What are the chances that we actually continue next week with such a strong candle? I don't know. I don't know anymore. And so let's actually look at Ethereum now. So we have these clear ranges for Bitcoin. And of course, the long from down here, targets could be the same. You don't have to take profits here. You could wait and hold out and see if it comes up higher. None of this is financial advice, by the way. This is just me thinking out loud, talking to myself. With Ethereum, I'm kind of surprised Ethereum has not been as strong as Bitcoin. I mean, I'm not totally surprised because it was stronger for a while, but it almost looks like it wants to find support at this level here, ETH BTC. I've been watching this chart like a hawk. And if we look on the weekly, look at that weekly candle for ETH BTC. Again, probably one of the largest. Well, this one was larger, but very large red candle. And I did say it would eventually come back down to the bottom of this range. I just didn't expect that it would happen while Bitcoin was pumping, but you never know when that's going to occur. I would not be surprised if, especially if we look on the 4H, you can see this is a level of support where the price sits currently. You can see here it was support, here it was support, here it deviated below, but got back above, okay? And so would it surprise you if it did come back and shoot up and at least retest this level here? If that's the case, Ethereum is probably going to push to $2,000. And Ethereum has not broken out of its accumulation range yet. Surprising, because Ethereum was actually holding up much stronger. It actually never came back to retest these lows, whereas Bitcoin came back and deviated below them. And so I would expect Ethereum to sort of kick in at some point here, but it hasn't done that yet. So let's just look at where we would want to, where I would want to take some longs on Ethereum. I did take a long today earlier. It was a little bit premature because it did break out, but then it got crushed back down again. And so from the 4H perspective, again, I'm just looking at the EMAs now to see. You can see in this case as well, it held as support. It did come below a few times, but then you have these pin bar type candles here. And look at the way that it's sort of just gradually, just really held as support here, this 21 EMA. And so I think if Ethereum comes back down 1766, I mean, ideally it actually comes all the way back down to 1700, and then we see a pattern, and then there's a long trigger there. You've got 1780, and then you've got 1850, 1855, and then all the way up to $2,000 for Ethereum. Those are near-term targets for Ethereum. But even if Ethereum only pushes down to here, and we see it somewhere beneath this 1750, and then we see sort of a pin bar type candle here, and you see some strength overall, and Bitcoin sort of holding its own, then in that case, that could be a long trigger. So 1750 is a level that I'd be watching carefully if it gets there. I don't know that it will. And it could just be that this is a temporary, no, it doesn't. It looks like it's back. We're in sort of a range for Ethereum right now. and this would be the range. So another possible long scenario is if it does just rip higher. Oh, I just can't find my tools today. It's like going in the shed and you can't find your hammer, you know? So if it just rips back up here and then we get another sort of strong break. So this 15-minute candle was kind of a trigger for me to go long, but then it was not, there was no follow through. So I had to cut it around here. But if there is another one of those and then it just continues, there's some follow through, then I'd be longing and I'd be looking to target upwards of 2K, maybe beyond that for Ethereum. But Ethereum has not been as clear to me as Bitcoin. It's sort of puzzling right now, and maybe it's in anticipation of the Shanghai upgrade. I'm not sure exactly when they're allowing stakers to sell off their rewards or to sort of claim them. Maybe that's already happening right now, and that could be the reason why. I don't speculate too much. It's just the price action is showing that Ethereum will probably push up at some point. It's probably going to rip high. It's probably going to really rip relative to Bitcoin, because it's been sort of suppressed the last week or so as Bitcoin's really stolen the show. And this is actually part of the process. During a bull run, usually Bitcoin will pump first, and then you'll have the liquidity flowing down into Ethereum and then into the altcoins. But the altcoins have sort of been all over the place. Some of them have really pumped, some of them have not. And that's why it's just not really worth it for me to try to chart the course for the alts. Right now, I can do just fine with Bitcoin and Ethereum. And it also just saves me a lot of headache. And I just feel better at the end of the day. I know exactly where I want to do my business. So I hope that you found this video inspirational. I think that 2023, as I've mentioned many times, it's going to continue to be a volatile year. And we should expect that we're going to be mostly range bound, but the range is going to be a much larger range. And so be willing to play both sides and be as neutral as possible. Tune out both the bulls and the bears. I know the bears are awful quiet right now. I don't consider myself either. I just am trying to find the best probability. And right now we have to lean towards upward momentum and yet be ready and willing to short if there is some sort of if something happens after FOMC or we see the momentum. And it really comes down to, for me, it just comes down to the momentum. If I see the momentum, then I have to act on it and I have to stick to the plan. And that's what will help the most with trading. So I hope that you found this video helpful, and have a beautiful rest of your day.